Welcome once again. I'm Bishop Gregory, and this is part two of how the Obama-Cruz fraud is destroying the presidency along with the Constitution. The Dallas Morning News on August 18, 2013, published a copy of the birth records released by Cruz, his Canadian birth records, which opened the debate over Cruz's eligibility for the Oval Office. And unlike Obama, who had issued a number of forged certifications of live birth to support his eligibility claim, Cruz had just proven that he was a Canadian citizen at birth by releasing his Canadian birth records. Well, immediately, many in his campaign and others in the RNC and the GOP scrambled to do damage control by claiming that perhaps Cruz was a dual citizen at birth via his American-born mother. But there were no U.S. documents supporting that claim to be found. And even if there were, the Constitution does not allow for dual citizens to hold the office of president or vice president. Then some Harvard lawyers entered the fraud. These are the exact same Harvard lawyers that have been protecting Barack Hussein Obama for almost 8 years now. They advised Cruz to immediately renounce his Canadian citizenship, which he did on May 14, 2014. And by June of 2014, his friends and supporters at Fox News were beginning to clear his path to the White House by floating the idea that Ted was now a natural-born citizen of the United States, based upon renouncing his Canadian citizenship, knowing that the majority of American citizens were, by this time, too dumbed down in the public school system to know the truth. But many of us do know the truth. You see, two critical problems still remain. Renouncing his Canadian citizenship affected his Canadian citizenship only, not his citizenship records in the United States, which to date appear not to even exist. And as Ronald Reagan would say, here we go again. As with Obama before him, we have another freshman senator, a Harvard lawyer with Harvard law friends, and no U.S. documentation to prove that Ted Cruz is a U.S. citizen of any type. A man with known foreign origins and the son of a father, Rafael Cruz Sr., who was at no time in his life a legal citizen of the United States until 35 years after Ted's birth in Canada, when he renounced his Canadian citizenship and naturalized to the United States in 2005. But unlike Obama, who had taken great care to forge a false documented past before running for office, Ted had already proven to the world that he was not a natural-born U.S. citizen at birth, but rather a documented Canadian citizen at birth. Also, not only had he committed election fraud by not disclosing to Texas voters that he was a Canadian citizen in 2012, now he was about to join Barack Hussein Obama in an even greater national effort to defraud all American voters by seeking the U.S. Oval Office less than a year after renouncing his Canadian citizenship. On December 18, 2013, the North American Law Center foresaw this sad moment in history which moved them to send a certified letter to Ted Cruz urging him not to step out on this political limb because he has many enemies ready to saw it off. But in his arrogance, Cruz refused to respond to the letter. And enter once again the shyster Harvard lawyers on March 11, 2015. Two Harvard law friends published a Harvard Law Review opinion declaring both Ted Cruz and Barack Hussein Obama to be natural-born citizens of the United States. And this opinion was backed up by just about every single Fox News talking head, including Bill O'Reilly, Megyn Kelly, and the rest. The key opinion in the entire legal wordsmithing document is this, quote, while some constitutional issues are truly difficult, with framing era sources either non-existent or contradictory here, the relevant materials clearly indicate that a natural-born citizen means a citizen from birth with no need to go through naturalization proceedings. Folks, this opinion is flat out wrong. What the so-called Harvard experts are saying is, quote, we just can't find any documents to confirm the founders' intent of the term natural-born citizen, so we think it means this: a citizen at birth is a natural-born citizen. Well, apparently these liberal-educated twerps never heard of the Federalist Papers, which contain all of the writings and original intent of the framers of the Constitution. And never mind that Harvard and Yale law buddies had already decided that illegal aliens are really just undocumented citizens, or that they long ago twisted naturalization laws to make illegal aliens born on U.S. soil anchor babies, who are also considered to be citizens at birth. These so-called legal experts have now expanded all of our naturalization terms to mean natural-born citizen, using naturalization amendments, cases, and statutes to do it. And in so doing, they are eliminating the true meaning of the purpose of the Article 2 natural-born citizen requirement from our Constitution without having to endure the cumbersome process of actually amending the Constitution legally. Now, what was once a long-fought leftist battle to eliminate all constitutional foundations for a sovereign government by a sovereign nation and of its sovereign citizens has now been joined by Republicans like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Bobby Jindal, none of whom are actually eligible for the Oval Office, and all of whom know it. And just days following the Harvard opinion piece, Cruz stood among 12,000 Liberty University students who were forced to attend the event and announced he was running for the office of president. Sadly, if you were to ask the average American citizen today what natural-born citizen is, they don't know. Even many who think they know do not know. Since Barack Obama, numerous definitions based on numerous political agendas have been floated, making what was once a very common, simple term too ambiguous to enforce. Now we are witnessing the utter demise of the American presidency, which means that from here on out, any person born anywhere on earth to any foreign father or mother can be President of the United States in direct violation of the U.S. Constitution. The only documentation Obama ever proffered was a forged certification of live birth, not a birth certificate, from Hawaii, which Hawaii prints off and hands out like party invitations. And the only documentation Ted Cruz has provided is proof that he was born a Canadian citizen at birth and remained such until May 14, 2014. And on this basis, Harvard law experts say both can be president. Now I shall explain what natural-born citizen really means and why the framers chose that term in an effort to prevent people like Barack Obama, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Bobby Jindal, or any child of illegal immigrants from ever following the White House. For those who are serious enough to want to know the truth, they can find it in the writings of the founders, in which they identify the source of the term as being Vattel's International Treaty on Natural Law, the Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 19. Any American citizen who knows how to read and who has the ability to comprehend what they are reading can easily find it, read it, understand it, and know it. There is nothing at all mysterious or puzzling about it, unless you let your political agenda drive your facts. The true definition of the natural-born citizen requirement for the Oval Office, as described throughout the entirety of Chapter 19, can be summed up in this section from 212. Quote, as the society cannot exist and perpetuate itself otherwise than by the children of citizens, those children naturally follow the condition of their fathers and succeed to all their rights. The society is supposed to desire this in consequence of what it owes to its own preservation. And it is presumed as a matter of course that each citizen, on entering into society, reserves to his children the right of becoming members of it. The country of the fathers is therefore that of the children, and these become true citizens merely by their tacit consent. We shall soon see whether on their coming to the years of discretion, they may renounce their right and what they owe to the society in which they were born. I say that in order to be of the country, it is necessary that a person be born of a father who is a citizen, for if he is born there of a foreigner, it will be only the place of his birth and not his country. End of quote. Well, having stated all that, Barack Obama's father was never a U.S. citizen. Ted Cruz's father was never a U.S. citizen either until he naturalized 35 years after Ted's birth. Ted remained a legal citizen of Canada until he renounced his Canadian citizenship on May 14, 2014. And without any U.S. documents, Ted Cruz is now nothing more than a man without a country. In today's society, where many women choose not to marry, it has become acceptable for the mother to pass on U.S. citizenship to their children. However, that does not make the child a natural-born citizen if the biological father was not a U.S. citizen himself at the time of the child's birth. Now, contrary to what many liberal leftist so-called lawyers and constitutional experts say, There is no such thing as an undocumented citizen. You are either a legal citizen of the United States with legal documents, such as a valid birth certificate or a green card, giving an individual born in a foreign country the right to legal permanent residency in the United States after receiving refugee status or asylum and having obtained a sponsor. Green card holders must wait a number of years before they can legally apply to become a U.S. citizen through a process called naturalization. There are no other ways that people can become U.S. citizens, such as by birth in the U.S., birth overseas to a U.S. citizen parent, or living in the U.S. as a child when the parents become naturalized. It must be understood that naturalized citizens are not and cannot be natural-born citizens. The only way that an individual can go straight from having no U.S. immigration status to being a U.S. citizen is by joining the U.S. military. And this, Ted Cruz never did. Neither did Obama. Green card holders cannot do everything that U.S. citizens can. For instance, they cannot vote in U.S. elections. They cannot remain outside the U.S. for unlimited amounts of time or make their home elsewhere, because doing so will result in abandonment of their residency and refusal of their request to re-enter the United States. Also, they can lose their residency rights by failing to advise U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services of changes in their address, committing crimes or acts of espionage or terrorism, and more. Also, green card holders can't always get the same assistance and benefits from the government that U.S. citizens can. Many federal programs impose a 5-year waiting period before green card holders can start receiving benefits. Now, please also understand that nothing pertaining to naturalization pertains to natural born. Nothing. Naturalization is the legal process by which an alien, non-citizen, becomes an American citizen. Natural-born citizenship is a natural law term describing a condition that either exists or it does not exist at the moment of birth. There is nothing anyone can do to become a natural-born citizen once they were not born a natural-born citizen. The lies that are spouted by Ivy League lawyers to the contrary are put forth with the explicit intent to alter the founder's intent, and once again, they know it. It is a common law practice that all learned in law school. And common law is the legal British practice of openly subverting constitutional law. And if this fraud is allowed to continue, those American citizens who are supporting or voting for Ted Cruz will be guilty of aiding and abetting in the destruction of the American presidency and the Constitution of the United States. The worst part of this entire fraud will culminate in a demise of the United States itself, because it will show that the citizens of the United States are willing to put their politics ahead of their Constitution. Every violation of the Constitution that is allowed to stand without vigorous opposition by we the people puts us one step closer to tyranny and a dictatorship, making it easier for the government to commit the next violation and the next until nothing remains of the original Constitution. And all of our rights and freedoms are nothing more than a distant memory in the minds of a dying older generation. Thank you. May God bless you all. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.